Okay, here's a biggie. This is what I mean about you guys getting tougher on me here. Can you discuss CPT Stent and cardiac cath coding? I did have time to make copies for the Stent coding, and quite honestly, I just picked up on the cardiac cath. I focused on the Stent. Let me pull up my slides for that. All right. Now, this is an example of how I teach my review class, and actually, my regular coding class, is I teach with my manual. I have a document camera that's pointing down on my book, and I'm pointing at different pages. I'm showing you how I've marked up my book. It's called Bubbling and Highlighting. And these are just some pages on 471 and 472 of the 2011 version. And unfortunately for like stents and stuff, they don't really have a nice header. Say, okay, here are the the angioplasty codes. So what I did is I kind of make these notes down on the bottom. And if that's not showing up good, just let me know, Boyd. So, and there will be a recording of this video made, and Boyd, as you probably, many of you already know, you'll get lots of emails where we'll say it's ready, and you can go click on it and review this and pause it and, copy these notes down. So basically, I'll show you all these bubbles, but this is where we want to start here. I have 1, 2, 3, and the way I indented it is kind of key to understanding this as well. So you want to start by putting stents first, and then indented underneath of it, number 2, your atherectomies, and indented underneath of that, number 3, your PTCAs or your balloon angioplasties. Now you'll see here I wrote stents rule, and that's pretty much how I help my students to remember this, is that the reason I put it in this little hierarchy is if you have a stent done and an atherectomy and a PTCA all in the same vessel, the stents rule in that the atherectomy and the PTCA is bundled into it. If you have an atherectomy and a PTCA of the same vessel, the PTCA is bundled into the atherectomy. You never have more than one code for any vessel in an operative session, okay? And that's why I put here 1 code per vessel. Even if all 3 things were done to that same vessel, you're going to have whichever one is considered the more complex. And an atherectomy is more complex than a PTCA, and the stent is more complex than both of them, okay? So let me show you the 3 different bubbles here. So I have bubble number 1 for stents, and that's right above it here. So that's your 92980. A little bigger here. And you can see it says transcatheter placement of intracoronary stent or stents. Always be careful of your plurals in CPT. So again, we're talking about 1 vessel. You could have 3 stents in that 1 vessel. You're just going to have 1 unit of 92980. Okay. Now, my notes in the margin includes atherectomy and PTCA. That's my reminder. And how do I know that? Because it says with or without other therapeutic intervention. That's what atherectomies and PTCAs are. They're other therapeutic interventions. Okay. And then you have your add-on code 92981, each additional vessel. So if you have vessel A gets a stent and vessel B gets a stent, then you're going to have 1 unit of 980 and 1 unit of 981. Okay? So that's the stents rules bubble. Number 2, the atherectomies. Unfortunately, you have to go to the next page. They weren't laid out very well for me in 2011. I'm hoping the 2012 book will be better. And here's the atherectomies, 92995 and 92996. And you'll notice I have a bubble around it. That's part of my bubbling and highlighting technique. And this one says percutaneous transluminal coronary atherectomy. So they're removing the plaque. That's what an atherectomy is. And here I wrote includes PTCA because it says with or without balloon angioplasty. Okay? So, and then your 996 is each additional vessel. So if you have an atherectomy and a stent, you code the stent. If If you have an atherectomy and a PTCA, you code the atherectomy. One code per vessel. Okay, for our third bubble, it's the 92982 bubble and the 983 bubble. Percutaneous transluminal coronary balloon angioplasty single vessel, PTCA. So this one's bundled into the other two. The only time you would ever code 92982 is if that was all that was done to that vessel in that operative session. If anything else is done, it's going to be bundled into it. Okay, so one code per vessel. Now, there's a little twist to this that gets everyone messed up initially. If you had a stent of vessel A and, let's say, a PTCA of vessel B, you actually have two vessels that were worked on. So you should have two codes. So for vessel A, you're going to have the 92980. That makes sense. Always pick your higher value one and code it first. Everything else after that is going to be an add-on code. So now for vessel B that had the PTCA, we don't code 92982. We have to code the add-on code for that one. I said 3 before, the 92984, each additional vessel. And we can confirm that by looking at the parenthetical note. It says use it in conjunction with 92980. That's the stent code. 92982, which makes sense. That's the PTCA code itself. And 92995, that's the atherectomy code. So even though a lot of times we get in the mindset that add-on codes can only be used with the code that it followed, that's not true. 90% of the time it is, but there's many instances where that's not the case. So all subsequent vessels are an add-on code. Might not be in the same bubble, okay? So that's my little stent lecture. So stents rule, this is the hierarchy, one code per vessel, subsequent vessels are add-on codes.